Hey everyone, my name is Sakairis, and welcome back to your favorite movie review channel where we only do the best movie reviews and nothing else. So, I am making this video because I have seen Avatar 2 in theaters twice now. The first time I went to go see it in 2D. It was a great experience. I really liked the movie. I actually thought it was a little better than the first one. It was a little long. The 3.5 hour runtime really, you can really feel it when you're watching it, but that's not why I'm making this movie. I'm making this movie because a few days after I went to go see it in 2D, I went back to the same theater to see it in 3D. And oh my God, it was just such a worse experience. The 3D version of Avatar 2 has some choices in it that are very, very questionable. And it has nothing to do with like the content of the movie. It doesn't, it's not like there's like some characters that are like goofy or annoying, or there's like parts of the plot that just don't add up and that's like really obvious. It's nothing like that. I mean, there is some stuff like that, but what I'm talking about is more how the movie is presented. So I'll just get into it, right? This movie, Avatar 2, is shot in, I don't know what the filmmaking term for it is, but it's like higher frame rate. It's at 48 frames per second instead of 24 frames per second. It's like a higher frame rate thing. They did the same thing with a few other movies. I think they did this with the Hobbit trilogy. Basically, the idea is that it's like the whole movie is in smoother motion. It's 48 frames per second, but the thing is, the entire movie isn't shot like that. It's only specific parts, right? And this is actually a thing that I read in reviews of the movie before I went to go see it, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. It'll probably just be a thing where it's different, like some scenes are shot in 48, some scenes are shot in 24, maybe the more CGI intensive scenes are in 24, and then some of the ones that have more practical assets are filmed in 48 or something like that. No, that's not what it was. It literally varies between 48 and 24 shot to shot, right? So you'll be watching a scene and it'll be like in 48 frames per second, and it'll be like all the smooth motion. And then there will just be one shot out of nowhere that's in 24, and then it goes back to 48. And the thing is, when there's been like a lot of shots in 48 before that are all in a row, and you get used to the smooth motion, when it switches back to the standard 24 frames a second, it looks laggy. It literally just looks like the movie is lagging. And I know it's not actually lagging, like that's how it's supposed to look, but you just get so used to the smooth motion that it looks laggy. And then it also goes the other way around, where when you have a long sequence that's in the standard 24, and then you have one shot that's in 48 frames a second, especially if it's like a really CGI intensive shot, it looks like a Call of Duty cutscene. I mean, there's a part at the beginning of the movie when they're having like a big gunfight at the scene that's where like the ending of the first movie is, at the research base in the floating mountains. I'll see if I can find a clip of it here, but this entire scene, most of it is in 48 frames a second, and it literally looks like a cutscene from a Call of Duty game, just like the dudes are blue because it's Avatar. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous, right? So there's the problem with the frame rate, which is one thing, right? That's a problem throughout the entire movie. But then, oh my God, and then so in the 2D version, there is a scene that's like an establishing shot of the human ships, the Venture Stars, coming back to Pandora, right? It's like this big shot. It looks absolutely amazing. Like, it is easily the best looking sequence in the 2D version, right? And they like land on the planet, and there's like these huge plumes, this like huge fireball that's created by the ship's engines and whatnot. It looks absolutely amazing in the 2D version, right? So you would assume that scene would be equally as impressive in the 3D version. Except no, it's not. Because for some godforsaken reason, I don't know why, this scene is not in 3D in the 3D version. And it is the only scene in the entire movie that is not in 3D. I was looking at it in the theater, right? I was watching it because all the scenes before that are in 3D, all the scenes after it are in 3D. And then this scene came on and I was like, oh boy, let's go. I can't wait to see the Venture Star, the big spaceships in 3D because this was the best looking scene in the 2D version. And then it got to that point and I was like, what is this? Are my glasses working properly? Like what the hell's going on here? So I took up my glasses off and sure enough, all the stuff in the back, like the far back, like, you know, miles away, looks exactly the same as all the stuff in the front. It's not blurry. It doesn't have that kind of like, that look, of when you're looking at a 3D movie without the glasses on and like stuff that's farther away looks more blurry and out of focus. It didn't have that. It was all perfectly in focus. And this one scene, like I said, I cannot say this enough, the best looking scene in the 2D version of the movie is not in 3D in the 3D version. And I have no idea why they did that. And this got me thinking, right? Because that scene is like a pretty CGI heavy scene, like obviously, right? You know, it's like massive spaceships and stuff. And there's a lot of detail there. And then the whole thing with like some of the scenes being in 48 and like some of them being in 24 and it changes shot to shot, it kind of got me thinking about why they did that, because there's no way that this was intentional, right? There is no way that a team of like hundreds and hundreds of people, probably even thousands of people to work on a movie like this, there is no way that thousands of people looked at this before it came out and were like, yeah, that looks absolutely great, that won't be distracting at all, put that in theaters, right? So my theory about why they did this is that because this movie is like really CGI heavy, I would assume it probably takes like a long time to render these different shots, right? There's so much CGI in this movie that it's probably to the point where it takes like, you know, hours upon hours, if not even days to render like a single frame. So my thinking is they saved all the rendering until like the very end. And then when they were doing their big final render, because they had to render the entire movie at 48 frames per second, twice the amount of frames that like every other movie has, it took a lot longer than they expected, and they just, I don't know, ran out of time or something to render the rest of the movie. So they were just like, all right, take the scenes that we already have completed in 48 frames, stitch it together with the 24 frames per second version, and then just send that out to theaters, right? There is also like a 24 frames per second version of this movie where the whole movie is just in standard because, you know, not every theater has projectors that are capable of 48 frames a second. Like my local theater did have that, you know, unfortunately, but there's a lot of theaters that just don't have that because, like I said, it's a pretty rare thing. There's only, I could probably count every movie that's ever done this on like my hands. I don't know. It was just, it's just so many weird choices. And so if you're gonna go watch Avatar 2, I would recommend, first of all, see it in 2D. Don't see it in 3D. And then second of all, go and see it at a theater that does not have 48 frames per second projectors, or like that displays it in the standard frame rate. Like, I don't know how the hell you're gonna find that out, but maybe you should put some effort into it, because without those, it's a great movie and it's a really good experience. Like I said, a bit long, but it's a great movie. But you know, once you start getting in, you start noticing the frame rate switches and the one scene that's not in 3D for some reason, and it's just, oh my god. Everything else that's wrong about the movie, like there's some goofy parts and there's some things in it that don't really work, but all of that feels like nitpicking compared to this. So I just wanted to make a video about this specifically. So yeah, if you're gonna go see Avatar 2, 2D, 24 frames a second, that's the way to do it. Thank you guys for watching. I've been Sakairos, your favorite movie review channel that does only movie reviews and absolutely nothing else, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.